Hello and welcome to my college basketball top 25 predictions. I kind of shitty title, but my top 25, like these upcoming games, not actual top 25. Like and subscribe because that's pretty cool. And tell me in comments any video ideas because that's also pretty cool. First off, we have Miami at North Carolina. So, there's actually like a lot of good games in these next couple days, but this one is a little funky in particular because North Carolina is still able to make the tournament. They just have to go on quite a ridiculous run. But it's actually pretty doable from what North Carolina actually is. I say that Miami's going to have a very tough time. They're 20-5. I find that kind of crazy. I think Miami's going to have a very tough time at North Carolina, and they're going to make a statement and honestly, North Carolina is going to have some incentive to play their best because one loss and they're donezo. They have to play at NC State, Virginia, and Duke. I'd say their hardest game is probably between at NC State or against Virginia. And if they can somehow win all of their final games, they're in the tournament, which is doable. The Tar Heels are a good team. They've kind of just taken some shitty losses throughout the year, but it's very doable. And honestly, North Carolina, they have a pretty good fan base at North Carolina, 15 Miami. Miami, I don't feel like they deserve 20-5 to be perfectly honest, but I think they're just going to struggle greatly and take an L to North Carolina. Texas at Texas Tech. I would love to favor the underdog, but Texas Tech is kind of dog shit, and Texas is going on a pretty big run right now. They're just like, they keep doing really good, and then they lose to a team, and then they win against a team, and I don't know. I think they just, right now, winning is their priority, and at Texas Tech should not be a problem at all. Let's see what Texas has in the future. In the future, Texas has to play Oklahoma at Texas. That's a win. They have to play Iowa State at Texas. That should be a win. At Baylor, that's a tough game. At TCU, that's a tough game. And they finish off the season playing Kansas. That's also a very tough game. I mean, Texas, I'm pretty sure they've already secured their March Madness spot, but we always got to try and make that higher. They could probably secure a number. They could probably get a number 1 seed if they win out. Honestly, number 9 Baylor and number 5 Kansas. If those are wins, I mean, that's huge. West Virginia at Baylor. So West Virginia beat Iowa State, and then they got smacked by Texas, 34-point deficit. And honestly, I'm not going to say anything's going to change. At Baylor, it'll be a little closer. West Virginia, I mean, to be honest, West Virginia probably is not going to play nice after getting whooped like that. But Baylor's got a lot of play for right now, and honestly, they can't really take a loss. Let's see who Baylor has to play. West Virginia's out of the tourney. West Virginia's out. Baylor took a dub at TCU by 4. That was a good win. Now they're number 9. They play West Virginia, obviously. Then they have to play at Kansas. That's a toughie. Then they have to play at Kansas State. That's also a toughie. Then they have to play Texas. That's also a toughie. And then they finish off with at Oklahoma State and then against Iowa State. I mean, I'm being perfectly honest. I don't really know how March Madness works based off of, your record, but I'm pretty sure like teams with 10 losses can't really make it into the thing unless maybe like some wacky circumstance. I'm not sure if that really goes along with Baylor and the like better basketball schools. But pretty much from what I see is Baylor could have 3 losses on their shoulders. They have to play at Kansas State. Those could both very well be losses. And then they have to play Texas at Baylor, but Texas is a good basketball team. So I don't know. That'd leave them with 9, which means any little upset loss ends up in a 10-loss record. I don't know what happens there for Baylor, but they definitely don't want to lose to West Virginia. It's at Baylor. I don't think they should. This should be a pretty easy win. Creighton at Providence. So Providence, right, they just lost to St. John's somehow. They also barely lost to Xavier, right? And They're 7 losses, whereas Creighton took a shitload of losses at the beginning of the season, and since then has pretty much just won every other game. And I'm going to give this one to Creighton. I feel like Providence, well, right now, Creighton could obtain, I mean, like, again, I don't know if it works for 10 losses like that, but they could obtain 3 losses. A loss to Providence and potentially a loss to Marquette leaves room for 4 potential upsets. Now, they play at Providence, then they play at St. John's. That should be a win. They play Marquette at Creighton. That could be a win, but you never know. At Villanova could potentially be tough. Georgetown and DePaul, those are 2 light work games. But again, the 10 loss, I don't know what happens there, but Creighton is currently 2 losses away, meaning, yeah, another loss really just could end things. I think it's actually, is it beyond 10 losses now that I think about it? I think it might be beyond. If you have more than 10 losses, then you're out. I'm not too sure. I don't really know how. This is like my first year actually kind of paying attention to basketball. But yeah, I think Creighton will win. Honestly, I just think Creighton's the better basketball team. I think they just had a really tough start to the season. I mean, they lost to teams like U of A and Texas by very small scores. ASU, they lost by 2. Like, they lost by very close scores. They should be a much higher ranked team, and they are way better than what their record is. NC State at Orange, at Syracuse. Syracuse is, I mean, I haven't really seen them do anything impressive at all. NC State is currently 20-6. I did not know this, so I'm going to give it to NC State. Just because I don't really know a whole lot about these two. I think that's a close score. Yikes. I don't know why I put that. Kansas at Oklahoma State. I would love to favor Oklahoma State because I do believe Oklahoma State's a very good basketball team, but I kind of shit on Kansas all season, and they really are. They are a good basketball team, and I think this might be a little bit of a definition game for Kansas because, you know, one, it is Oklahoma State. Kansas is I'd say a much better team. Even though I like Oklahoma State and I think they are a good team, I'm not too sure if they'll be able to hold off Kansas and maybe even beat them. It might be closer, but I don't know. Sometimes Kansas can be sometimes Kansas can look really good, and I think this might be a game where they just do crazy shit. Kansas State at Oklahoma. This is going to be an upset for the Sooners. It's so funny how, like, I just despise Oklahoma in football. I want to see them fail. And Kansas State, I love to see Kansas State do good in football. And then the moment Kansas State starts doing good in basketball and Oklahoma does shit, I'm like, let's go Sooners. I just love the underdog for some reason. I always favor the underdog. Oklahoma's had a tough couple weeks. So they barely lost to Iowa State on January 4th. Then they beat Texas Tech. They barely lost at Kansas. They barely lost by 4. They beat West Virginia by a punto. They lost at Oklahoma State. They lost by 2 to Baylor. They got beat pretty good by TCU. And then they slaughtered Alabama. They beat the shit out of them. Then they lost by 10 to their rival at Oklahoma. They got slaughtered by West Virginia. They got beat by 10 at Baylor, and then they got slaughtered by Kansas. Oklahoma is a good basketball team for what their record is, they've played really impressive basketball in a lot of their games. I mean, to think about it, if you put them in like another like ACC or Big Ten, this team's probably got a much better record and a ranking spot. But they just play one of the toughest conferences, and they've taken some really close losses all season. I feel like Oklahoma is going to turn around and take a big dubster against Kansas State, whether it's a close game or not, whether it comes down to the last second. I just want to favor Oklahoma, but I don't really know. It might, I don't want to give it to them by more points, even though my gut says, yeah, more points. I don't want to, just because it's hard to predict an upset like this. So make it somewhat reasonable. Alabama at Tennessee, probably the game of the week, honestly. This is our Wednesday game now, or this is on to Wednesday. Tennessee, dude, they lost 2 games in a row to buzzer beaters, dropped down to number 10. I feel like that's a very respectable spot because Yeah, losing to 2 buzzer beaters is kind of just tragic and shouldn't really affect your record that bad. Whereas Alabama jumps up to number 1 in the country. Like we're gonna gloss over them getting absolutely destroyed by Oklahoma, and the fact that Houston was number 2 when Alabama was number 3. We're just gonna keep Houston in the same spot. So I don't really know. I think the SEC is very overrated, but this is going to be a bounce back game for Tennessee, especially since these two are big time rivals, whether it's football or basketball. I mean, these two are big time rivals. Tennessee's still playing for they're still a really good basketball team. I do hate on them because I hate how the committee thinks they're just supposed to be like the best team in the league. I do believe they're still a good basketball team. And I don't know about Alabama holding on to that number 1 spot. And honestly, I looked and saw that Alabama is 12-0 in the conference. Ayo. I think this will be their first conference loss and a huge victory for Tennessee basketball. And honestly, a very much needed win for Tennessee basketball because they've kind of been getting screwed over. I mean, they almost lost to Auburn as well. Like, Tennessee basketball has been struggling, and this would be a huge bounce-back victory for them. So I think there's going to be a lot to play for in this game. And I don't know if Alabama, just like in football, I don't know if Alabama is going to be able to fend off the Volunteers. Virginia at Louisville. Do I even have to say anything? Louisville is 3-22 if you don't know, and Virginia's number 7. So, with that being said, Virginia should take an easy dub. It's funny how bad Virginia is in a lot of other sports, and then in basketball, they're just top tier. Honestly, it's really weird. Xavier at Marquette. I'd love to favor Xavier, but I do like Marquette, but I honestly think in this, Xavier takes the dub, but I'm going to give it to Marquette just because at Marquette, both of these teams are equal records. And ultimately, Marquette kind of took a shitty loss recently after going 5-loss for so long. They took a really shitty loss to UConn. They got kind of smacked around and tossed. Whereas Xavier's also taken some pretty bad losses recently, like that Butler loss that I predicted. Yeah, that was pretty bad. So, and honestly, that was kind of one of my reasonings for making it so close. Both of these teams have a lot to play for right now, and this win would be huge. So this could honestly be a very tight and compact. I mean, they're both Marquette's number 1 in the conference, and Xavier's number 2. So, with that being said, I mean, this is a big time game for this conference. So, yeah. I do believe both teams will have a lot to play for in this game, but I think Marquette will take it. Okay, this game, yes. Indiana at Northwestern. The 2 of the 3 teams that have beaten Purdue this season, I say Northwestern takes her home. I feel like it is just crazy not ranking Northwestern. After they beat Purdue, I mean, when Indiana beat Purdue and went up to number 18 or something like that with the exact same record, and Northwestern doesn't get ranked? Yo, what? So, I mean, Northwestern, let's talk about them. They've been kind of all over the place. They were undefeated until they took a 1-point loss to Northwestern, or to Auburn, sorry. At Northwest, or no, that was Invitational. They took a 1-point loss to number 13 in the country, Auburn. 1-point loss in a very low-scoring game. And then they got their ass beat by Pitt, which I think Pitt is actually a very good basketball team. They beat Michigan State at Michigan State. They beat these teams. They slaughtered DePaul. Yeah, beat all those teams. They lose at home to Ohio State, but then they beat Illinois. They beat Indiana on the road. They lose by 3 to Rutgers. They get beat pretty 7-point game to Michigan, and then 2 games get postponed. They beat Wisconsin. That's a pretty good win in my eyes. Beat Nebraska. Lose again to Michigan. Beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Wait, we're both? No, never mind. Beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Beat Ohio State at Ohio State. Beat Purdue, the number 1 team in the country, and now you come home to play Indiana. I feel like Northwestern's missing a whole lot of respect right now, and they will obtain it with a victory in this game. And I just pray that they beat this team and then they don't lose to Iowa, because I feel like they're probably going to beat Indiana and then lose to Iowa. TCU at Iowa State, another big time game this week. Iowa State's really had a tough couple weeks, whereas so has TCU. But I say Iowa State will win this home field. And yeah, a high score. It'll probably be a very hyped game. I'm gonna say I think Iowa State just has to win after losing so much if they want to even play, if they want to be even ranked anymore. They really have been taking a bad couple losses. And I think this is our last game. Number 21, SDSU at Fresno State. If you don't know what Fresno State's record is, it's 9-15. Whoa. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I didn't change the score. What the hell happened there? Okay, we'll create our own prediction here. I paused. I was like, wait a minute. No, that's not right. Fresno State is 9-15. They're not good. They're not good. At Fresno State, I don't care. San Diego State is 20-5 currently, and I do believe they deserve a little bit of respect for maintaining a pretty good record. I mean, let's be real. Some of their losses are against some of the best teams in the country. They beat Ohio State, which was a pretty good win. I mean, in my eyes, they lose to U of A by 17. U of A is still a top 10 team. They lose in overtime to Arkansas when Arkansas was hot. They lost to St. Mary. St. Mary is highly ranked right now. And they lost to New Mexico, in a pretty bad beatdown. If you don't know, New Mexico pretty much got ranked after that and went on a little bit of a run. They took a bad upset loss to Nevada, but every team's had a bad upset loss. And since then, they've won. Let's go ahead and show you what New Mexico went ahead and did. So New Mexico, since they beat whatever their faces, or no, they started before. They were ranked number 22, beat both of their teams. Then they go up to number 21. They lose to Fresno State, and then they lose to UNLV, so they get unranked. Beat Oral Roberts, and then they beat San Diego State. Win, and then they get ranked again, and they lose to Nevada. Nevada seems to be the killer of records. So I'm just going to say San Diego State deserves a little bit of respect and should be higher ranked. After all, they did start off the season ranked. Now they're just they've completely lost all the respect that they once had. Whereas Fresno State really only has one good win, and it's that win against New Mexico. I mean, I didn't really look at their thing, but that's the only game that I saw that kind of caught my eye. So I'm going to say a lower scoring game of 67. We'll give Fresno State some points. We'll give 67-60. How about that? 7-point game. San Diego State taking the dub at Fresno State. Yep, that was the last one. Holy shit, my thumbnail. Wait, no, that's the last week's thumbnail. Not this one. You should like and subscribe because it helps. If you have any video ideas, go ahead and tell me. I'm literally I don't know what else to do other than predictions and reviews, so go ahead and tell me. And yeah, that's all for me. Adios.